long have you been inspecting, Brian?
Almost 20 years now. I come from a construction background, building custom homes with my father-in-law. I work with two of the largest electrical corporations in the valley. I worked with Wilson Electric, which was Encompass at the time, and then I worked with Floresco Lighting and Signs and as a project manager over there. This is probably the most satisfying job I've ever had, because as you know, Dan, you do 2-3 inspections a day. In the morning, you're looking at something that, well, probably pour some gasoline and a match and we'll fix this thing real quick. And in the afternoon, you inspect which is the most gorgeous place you ever see. So, and it's people. You meet some great people. You make, I think that's a lot. I know this sounds cliche, but that relationship means a lot to me, and it means a lot to our inspectors as well, as building the relationship with our realtors. We have a strong relationship with our realtors. They know they can trust that when we're walking into the house, we're giving them a full, detailed, professional inspection as if we're inspecting for our mother. So that's really important to me, is the relationships that we build with our realtors. It's very important, and I know all of my inspectors have very good relationships with all of their realtors. When we work hard to keep that.
So we've got both furnaces going up here in the attic right now. Brian's over there taking some pictures by one of the furnaces.
So I don't know if you can see it, that hole that was in the back of the house, you can actually see the daylight coming through. So in that back corner right there, you can actually see the daylight there. So we know that that is an open area right into my attic. So we definitely got to get that hole repaired. It's just an avenue for bees and insects to get into the attic here. So looking at our ductwork, we're just double checking, make sure things are strapped properly. There's a couple of broken straps here and there. Doesn't look crushed. There's no signs of any weird angles or anything like that. So ductwork looks pretty good. Insulation looks good. Remember, when insulation gets wet, it'll turn this darker color and it'll never ever go back to where it used to be. So when we see darker, areas of insulation, it's usually an indication that we do have a roof leak somewhere, and we'll try to investigate it. But this insulation, this is blown cellulose. It's actually recycled newspapers. So yes, we do recycle. But as far as attics goes, this one's pretty clean. So we're looking at our furnaces here. We have 2 furnaces, one upstairs, one downstairs. We do have drip legs on there properly. There's a catch pan. We do have a primary and a secondary condensate line as well too. I've got the heat going right now so I can see what kind of flame we have on the furnaces, and they look to be in pretty good shape.
Cellulose is probably the most common type of insulation we find in Arizona, right?
It is right behind fiberglass.
Fiberglass first?
Insula, I would say the cellulose first, the fiberglass second. We verify our disconnects. There's our disconnects for each unit right here as well too. There's a lot of
quite a few pieces of duct coming out of that exchange. It looks good. This house actually does have a radiant barrier. This actually helps, you know, deflect a little sun, some heat away from the house. It just helps with part of the insulation process, if you will.
So now you know why your home inspector looks like a slob when you meet with him. It's not that he's been not working, it's because he has been working and getting in attics and places that, well, nobody's been in a long time. So if your inspector doesn't look like he's been working when you show up, that's when we have a question. Okay, so this is the brine line, drain line for the soft water system. And as you can see, it has the proper gap. It doesn't go all the way down inside the drain and create a cross connection. So that was probably done by the builder originally, so it's done proper. That's what we're looking for there.
This white thing on the floor, that's for the washing machine, right?
Yeah, this is our catch pan. This is something we like to see, especially houses or when the wash machine's on the second story. So there is a drain. What I usually recommend before we put the machine in is get a bucket of warm water and just drain it down, pour it down into the drain. You can have your wife go outside, just make sure it's draining properly, and get all the yucky, hard, nasty stuff that was in there, and then just make sure it's draining properly, because we don't want to test it when the machine is on there and all of a sudden it's flooding out into the loft area there. So that's just one of those tips that we always remind people. So as far as the inspection goes, as home inspectors, we're not here just to call out deficiencies and, beat up a house. That's not what we do. What we do is we educate our buyers. We're teaching them things that they've never heard before. And as the houses get smarter, your inspector needs to get smarter as well too. So take that into consideration. When you're hiring your home inspector, find out what kind of credentials he has. What kind of team is he on? Is he on a multi-inspection firm? Do they have specialty inspections? All those things are important when you're looking for a good home inspector. It was a running joke between my father-in-law and I when I used to work for him. Come in from lunch, he goes, "You're too clean." I purposely would come in for lunch and wipe myself with butt, like this. He goes, "And now you're a slob. I hope your work doesn't look like that." Thanks, Pop.
Always something.
So remember, we want the proper, the reason the builder put a receptacle here and receptacle there is so that if you wanted to go to like a dual vanity, you could, because this still will have the proper distance between the sink basin and the electrical. It's supposed to be 35 inches. So we go
Have cords all over?
and cords all over in our sinks and stuff like that. So yeah, absolutely. So we're not stretching a cord across the sink. It is GFI protected. Again, I verified with my tester today. As an inspector, one of our important parts of our toolbox is our GFI tester. I probably go through, I don't know, 35 of these every year. But it's always good to make sure that we test all the outlets that are supposed to be GFI protected with this tester, and it just enables us to get a good idea quickly how things work. So I'm doing a dump on the sink right now. I'm going to fill it up. And what I do as an inspector, I like to let things run a little bit, keeping an eye on, you know, where my basin is. So I'll go ahead and flush the toilet. And go ahead and get the shower running as well too.
Turn the shower out of this light
That light's got to shorten. So we got hot water. We're going to turn that all the way off. And then we're going to test our cold water. I like to do these individually, just make sure we don't have any cross connections. Hot water, cold water mix-ups, and just make sure there's no leaks at the valves itself. Go ahead and do a dump on my sink. Check for leaks. And once I verified that, I had an old inspector that I learned from. His big thing was just getting your hand up in there, putting your hand up on the connections. Just make sure that your eye didn't see what your hand can feel. Make sure there's nothing wet and verify that there's no leaks there. And then we'll go ahead and move on to the toilet. Now I've flushed it at least twice now. I'm going to flush it one more time. Got the shower running. We verified the warm water's in there. So now we're going to see what kind of drain we have on our tub. Just make sure it's functional.
The toilet's on the second floor can leak downstairs too.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why we flush that thing, especially in a vacant house, man. Just let's flush it a couple of times. I mean, I had one that I flushed maybe twice, 3 times, and it didn't leak until the 4th time. But you know, it was leaking, so that's how we find things. Sometimes it's repetitive, but sometimes that's the best way to figure out how things are working properly. So I'll check for the door, make sure we get a good swing. Boy, that's just barely, it's like a 1/16 of an inch on the clearance. So,
Measure your toilet before
measure your toilet before I put it in. Man. So, as far as when I'm working top to bottom on a 2-story. So I'll usually get all my wet locations. So I've already been in my laundry room, gone in my hallway. Now I'm going to go into my master bath. I'm going to repeat that process again until hot water, make sure the stops are working fine. It's a little wonky. We'll give that its first flush. Now, when I have an empty closet, I'm going to take the opportunity to really kind of examine shower and then examine behind here. Shower pans that leak will have evidence sometimes in the back end of the inside of the closet here. This one's, we've got fresh paint. It's all fresh paint as well too. So
It looks
this
good.
would look good. Yeah, yeah. You know, I didn't see any text in that attic either. Oh, looks like we got a little bit of a leak here. So let's figure out where we're leaking from. I actually like to stick my flashlight inside. It kind of reflects that water so it shows a little bit better in my picture as well. So there's our leak at the connection. I don't know if you can see it there. It's leaking at the connection to the stop. Got a nice drip. Oh, I caught it. And then go ahead and show the evidence of the drip there. Okay, so I verified the hot and cold. We don't have any leaks at the valves. You know, you'll see a good home inspector is not going to grab something and break it, but he's just going to put a little pressure on it. Just make sure everything is tight and secure. We've got enough water in this tub. See what kind of drainage we've got. Get an eye on our acrylic block. This stuff has a tendency of cracking in our Arizona sun. It's plastic. So sometimes you'll see these hairline cracks all the way through them because the sun just eats them up. This one's just got a lot of sloppy paint. You can see, so we've had some past water damage on the exterior side of the shower. You can see some heavy buildup there. I'll just notate that. It's on both sides, actually. And a lot of times, as is this one, it's missing the bottom trim.
It usually has like a little piece of plastic.
Little plastic, yeah. It's almost like a sweep, a little door sweep. All right, so go ahead and just make sure everything's, double check our outlets, get our eyeballs up. Some typical cracking on the seam. That's just a drywall crack there that from the seam here.
Is there any special care or worry about tile floors on a second floor bathroom?
Absolutely. So a lot of times people don't realize what's needed to put down tile on the second story when we're dealing with wood subfloor. So typically we'll put a bounded subfloor with either what we call cement board or wonder board, some sort of substrate that's going to give the tile some rigidity so it's not bouncing around with the subfloor. So if we don't do that, you'll notice we have cracked tiles or broken tiles. It's usually, I'll usually see those in houses that have been remodeled by the homeowner that doesn't really know how to do tile and doesn't put a proper subfloor down. But this one's done right. There's no cracks. This is original tile. It's on the 12. It's a 12-inch tile, so very common tile for builders to put in as well.
It looks great for the age.
Yeah, it's not in bad shape. Yeah.
I don't necessarily pick out this color, but you know, functionality doesn't look like a bunch of cracks all over, so it's good.
A little grout cracking there. Yeah.
Just
So again, a part of my process is if after I've done all the wet locations upstairs, the laundry room, the two bathrooms, I'll usually, where I come out is where I start working my way through the house. And again, circles. We're working in big circles, guys. So we're not looking at things passing by. We're looking at things on a direct process of how we do an inspection. So when we come into a room, we work in big circles, big circles. So I'll come out of the bathroom and I'll literally start with my first outlet, checking polarity, grounds, check my windows. We've noticed got some loose frames here. Actually, Dan saw another one in the front room too that we'll take a picture of as well too. But these are just loose.
Is that the frames on there?
This is a vinyl frame here as well.
You usually see some more movement in vinyl than you do in metal.
Yeah, that's true. Make sure the windows are locking, engaging properly, are moving smoothly. The single pane, you know, the double hung windows, we want to make sure they're moving properly and they're not catching and the sash isn't broken. So, switched outlet. How do we know it's switched? Half hot. Outlet's upside down, right? So typically, as an electrician, he'll wire the one that's on the top to be switched. So there's power there. It's because I got the switch on. So I'll run over here and turn the switch. And there we go. You can see me flickering the power on and off. It's so we can put a lamp over there. And we can switch it with that switched outlet there.
Brand new house a couple days ago that had just about every room had a switched outlet upside down, but they were all Wi-Fi enabled outlets.
Oh, jeez. Can we test those?
No.
No, we can't test. We couldn't test those. So what do we do?
Just write it up and have the builder or the seller demonstrate or provide documentation.
That's right. Move along. Can't test something, we'll note it, and we'll make sure that we have things checked. I got a pretty good crack on that ceiling here, so as I come through here, done my thing, Dan was just looking up and caught my eye, and yeah, we got some cracks here. So this is the last thing I'll do as I walk out of the room is just check the ceiling for moisture intrusion, stains, water damage, and cracks. So again, this is very common cracks. It's not anything to be concerned about, but again, it's aesthetic. You know, we'll make mention that we got a couple of cracks. Get those filled up properly. So this house has gas in it. So as I look at the smoke detectors, I'm going to see if any of these are carbon monoxide detectors, which are the combos, the smoke and carbon. And they're going to usually going to say it right on the front of the label, and neither one of those is. So where do we put carbon monoxide detectors? Sleeping areas. We want to put the smoke and the carbon monoxide in common areas of the bedrooms. Smoke detectors are installed in those areas in the bedrooms next to the doors, high enough in the corners. And we want to make sure that carbon monoxide detectors are installed in the areas of where the sleeping quarters are. So in this house, I'd probably put one there by the master, and then probably one there or there. And we can switch these out. So these are regular smoke detectors. We'll give them a quick ring out. We're going to put the test button on. So what's going on?
Connecting with
Right. None of them are connecting. They're not talking to each other. So these smoke detectors need to be replaced. The reason for that most of the time is that the smoke detectors all should be of the same brand. Kitty with Kitty, First Alert with First Alert. When we start mixing the two brands together, sometimes they're proprietary and they don't speak to each other properly. Obviously, these are not. So we're going to write these up that they're not functioning as originally intended. Make recommendations to change them and add the carbon monoxide detector in these areas that require them. Now, this is a home that originally, when it was built, didn't have carbon monoxide detectors. So again, there's your smart home inspector making sure that safety things, we probably should do it. Okay, and this is one of those things we definitely should think about doing.
And this is where the year of the house makes a difference. Makes
Absolutely.
a home inspector think about what things might be outdated.
Right, absolutely. Thanks for cleaning that up. So Dan and I have been walking through this house, and it's a vacant house. It's been vacant for a little bit. It looks like the house got painted not too long ago. There is a strong, strong odor of pet odor. It's something we report in our inspection report. It can be, yeah, especially when we have out of town. I mean, sometimes you'll have people not really visit the house, only in pictures. So you want to be the eyes and ears and obviously the nose on some of these houses. And you make notice that, yeah, we're probably going to have to replace this carpet, unfortunately, because the pet smells, the pet odors are really, really into the fibers of the carpet. It looks like they've tried to clean it and just not doing a very good job, unfortunately. So Dan's kind of showing you some stains there where he's noticed some pet stains in the tops and the corners there.
Don't get us wrong, we're pet lovers.
Yep.
Yeah.
We both have dogs. It's just one of those things that we just have to make sure everybody's not all pet lovers.
Yeah.
So
Some people are allergic.
some people are allergic. Yeah. So I get this all the time. Why do you do that? Why do you push those in? Why do you check those doors? Well, sometimes I kind of pretend I'm a 5-year-old boy, and I think let's push these in. See, what happens is when the guide is missing on the bottom there, it now makes these doors able to swing out of the top here and break off the track, and can come down and bang somebody's head, especially a child. So we want to make sure we put that bottom guide on there. So it's not just for convenience. That there is, we probably ought to need to do that. There's another loose frame there too. Windows, sometimes I'll put in general, conditions of the windows. Sometimes it's just, there's my switched outlet. So this house is actually equipped with jumping jacks. So this vent here is not a supply register, it's not a return register, but it's an area of bringing all the conditioned return air from this room back into the hallway and then down and then back into this return here. So what that does is allows the air to be drawn from these rooms in a more efficient way as well too. It also keeps the doors from slamming shut when the air conditioner comes on. So we used to have the ACs on, these older units would turn on, create this vacuum for the return and slam that door. With these, now it breaks that suction so that door doesn't come slamming, and we can return air efficiently back into the air conditioner as well too. So nice system, I like it. Plus when you have teenagers, they always keep the doors closed and they wonder why the room never gets cooled down. With that type of venting, it will help. There's a seal on the window. So I've always said with the vinyl windows, we don't use WD-40, anything with a petroleum base as far as lubricant. We use silicone spray. Usually soap and water will do it as well too. You know, anything with a petroleum base is actually going to make the window worse because it'll actually attract more dirt and dust. But the petroleum actually damages the vinyl. So one of the things that I always try to get people to do is use regular silicone spray. So you can see that this window on the left has lost its seal. And you can see how it's foggy on the bottom here. So it might be a little bit harder to see in that picture, but if you stand on the side, you can see and try to clean it. It just won't clean. And the seal has actually lost thermal gas between the panes. There's another one.
That's that bad window, isn't it?
Yeah. This is that one. This one's got really loose. Loose frame on it as well too. Over time, that can just deteriorate even more, and then you won't, the frame will break away, and you can't lock it or latch it properly.
Yeah, I'd love to say that I have a set system for inspecting a house, but there's millions of types of houses. There's a whole...
Everybody has their own thing, and that's the thing is too, though, Dan. I mean, how you inspect one house one day, sometimes you can't do the next day. Either there's hundreds of people in the house and you're working around them. During COVID, it was tough. Everybody was home. Dogs, pets. Can you not do this room until we get Fido out of there? Because he'll chew your face off. I'm like, okay. But I think the last 2 years we've kind of learned, once you have that habit of just working in circles, you'll never not miss something. It's just one of those things. You just keep working. You work down into that center point, you'll be fine. But when you start doing, and even big houses, I mean, 6, 7, 10,000 square foot homes, sometimes I'll literally just, because it's so big, I'll literally start on one side of the house and just work through the house from A to B, because then it's just easier. Because then you won't
even know what's a circle anymore. It's so big.
You don't know what a circle is, exactly. Right? Yeah, exactly.
We only hire NASCAR drivers, so if you used to work NASCAR, you're fit right.
Left-hand turns only. But that's the thing is too, is some of these big houses, it can be can be very daunting. Very, where do I start? Where do I start? And I just like to tell clients, start at the top, just work your way down. You'll find if you keep to that, you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
The biggest thing I try to keep in my mind when I'm showing up to a bigger house, now granted I haven't done too many huge houses, but they're all have the same systems. They're just
More sophisticated. Yeah, there's more sophisticated systems, or you'll have the super high-end efficiency stove, and you got to use a password, or the new Wi-Fi enabled convection ovens, and those are actually pretty cool. But it's just Wi-Fi that's in there. You can still override it, but it's still an oven. Yeah, you'll figure it out. But you got to be. And sometimes the either the realtor will be there or the seller will be there, or when I remember when that first oven top you have to use special pans for
the
induction. When I had to call my father. He was a chef. I was like, I don't know how to turn these on. He says, you got to use special pans. Well, that's true. So how do you test them? Usually the buyers or the sellers will sometimes, they'll leave a pan out for you. Here, this is how you test it.
Yep.
You fill it with water, but it boils like really super quick. It's pretty neat. But when you first look at something that's new, that you're not used to doing, you got to give yourself a minute. Sometimes that's what Google's for. Google it real quick. When I first started, we didn't have that. We had a phone that we could probably call a buddy that was in construction. Go, hey, have you seen this, or do you know what this is? But I was fortunate enough to have a father-in-law that knew everything about construction. He's a general contractor. So I was lucky when I first started 20 years ago to be able to go to that resource. But now it's being on a team, you have 7 other guys to help you. So that's what makes us different as well too. That inspector, just think that inspector that's in your home doing that inspection, he's got a team of guys behind him as well too to help him with that inspection as well too. If something comes up, they just, I don't know how to really relay this to the client, or I'm not sure what I'm looking at. He's got the resources to call somebody and to just double check it. And we can FaceTime him, and he can send me pictures, or I can send him videos. It's, again, the age of technology is amazing. I don't know how we did it. I really don't know how. So how many windows do I need to check in a house?
One a room.
Representative amounts. A representative amount. How many times? If I can get to a window, I'm going to try to open it. Same thing with outlets. If I can get to it, I'm going to test it.
Why not?
Why not? Exactly. Why not is a good way to put it. So if I can get to it, I'm going to test it. But as the standards of practice states, I have to check a representative amount. Man, I am a chocolate mess. Uh-oh. All right. And the hinge is loose. That door doesn't belong there. Somebody's tried to rehang this door.
Pulled it from a different door.
Yeah.
It's got the cap.
Yeah, the reveal is way off. So this door doesn't belong. So, and if you want to just
Pretty common
illustrate
thing
as
that
well
I find
too.
when a house has just been painted, they're pulling off hardware, pulling off doors, handles, stuff.
Yeah.
Like that, put back right. So I'm gonna try to fix it with a washer.
So that concludes our upstairs. So we've done the attic, the bathrooms. We ran the heat upstairs, downstairs. The furnaces are responding fine. So we do have some window issues that we're going to discuss with the client when they show up for the wrap-up. The pet order, yeah, it's there, so not much we can do. As far as you know, the doors and windows, like I said, there's a couple of doors that need adjustment. There's one that's just not closing properly. It's not the right door for that bedroom door, that privacy door. And then we've got some guides missing. So nothing crazy. Just some stuff that's laying out. You know, again, we're here to make sure that clients know what they can expect, what they need to do. So we'll break down here and take some photographs of the upstairs, and then we'll go down and work in the kitchen. Oh, looky. This is a little habit I've been getting into as well too, is houses that have gas. I'll double check to see if there's a gas stub behind the fridge. So
Wait, they got a gas line. It's just not connected. Gotcha. So they probably had a gas stove.
you can put a gas stove in.
On that gas line, is it important to be a 1/2 inch or 3/4 on the stove?
This one 1/2 inch. Pretty much your appliances will always be 1/2 inch. The only thing is really, yeah, a pool heater. Sometimes those big pool heaters you need them, but for the most part, pretty much 1/2 inch. So there's a couple of things to always look on the island. You know, is number one is just do what I do, is make sure it's attached properly. The other thing is make sure the island's attached to the ground properly. And people are like, well, how do you check that? Like, I'm playing hockey and field hockey and all this. Just give it a little hip check. Yeah, it's good. And make sure we have an outlet. This is one of the biggest pet peeves of me, especially when we do these remodels, we put these islands in. People don't realize that there has to be an outlet on the island. It has to be GFI protected. Because without an outlet on the island, it's kind of useless. You're not going to be able to work, especially if you're a baker or something. You need something to plug in.